Hello Hoopalings, Hoopa here, and I've heard a lot of people's opinions on what the starters are going to be for Pokemon Legends Z to A. I've heard people's opinions that bring up valid points on why certain Pokemon need to be starters and not. I've also heard opinions just based on people's favorite starter Pokemon. So, what do I think the starter Pokemon are going to be? Well, that's what this video is about. Now, before we get started, I'm going to be giving pros and cons to each of the starter Pokemon and giving my official opinion on what I think all three are going to be at the end of the video. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Now, we all know how Pokemon Legends Arceus went, right? We got to choose between Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott instead of the normal Sinnoh starters, Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup. Even though we did get to catch them in the wild in certain areas of the game, I'm also willing to bet that they're going to be doing something similar in PLZA. So, what do I think the starters are going to be in this game? Well, let's break it down a little bit first, since we're not going to be counting the previously mentioned Pokemon, obviously. So, given that, we have exactly 24 starters to choose from. However, I don't think we're going to be getting starters that already have Mega Evolutions like the starters from Gens 1 and 3, leaving us 18 starters to choose from. We also are more than likely not going to be receiving Gen 6 starters, because that wouldn't fit the idea that PLA has sent for us, nor will we be getting Gens 8 and 9, leaving us with a total of 9 starters to choose from. Although it would be funny to get a Mega Charizard Z, I'm just saying it'd also be funny if we got a Mega Mewtwo Z, so we'll just have to wait and see. So, which do I think are the best candidates for this game? Well, I'm going to break it down by starter. And I'm starting with Generation 2, and what better way to start Generation 2 than Chikorita? So let's talk about Chikorita. This Pokemon is beloved by many because it's cute. I mean, it even makes for an adorable plush. Look at it. Look at it. Who wouldn't want to snuggle this thing? But that's beside the point. When looking at this creatively, we're looking for a Pokemon that has a good potential for a Mega Evolution, because it seems like that's what the theme of this new Legends game is going to be about, because it's in Kalos. And that's actually why I'm starting out with Chikorita. I don't think that its final evolution, Meganium, is suited for a Mega Evolution. It's not that I don't want it to have one, but it just doesn't seem practical to me. With Mega Charizard, Mega Metagross, and Mega Gengar being great examples of this trend, being 3 of the most popular Megas to date. So what are the pros of Chikorita being selected as the Grass-type starter? Well, honestly, it's just the type combination that we could have with the Grass typing. Some of those combos would be Grass and Fairy, that's a popular one, Grass and Dragon, a type-exclusive combo that's just exclusive to Mega Sceptile, but very fitting for a Serapod-like Pokemon like Meganium, or even Grass and Water, making it look more like a Paleosaur. We could also do Grass and Psychic, because of its numerous Psychic-type moves. All good examples, but it has a major problem, and that is it has what I like to call STS, or single type syndrome, which means that its whole evolution line has a major 2x weakness to moves like fire, ice, flying, psychic, poison, and that's just to name a few, making it one of the weaker choices. Not to mention, this Pokemon's evolution line doesn't have any good coverage moves to compete with most of these weaknesses. But you know what does? Totodile. I love Totodile. It is by far my favorite water type starter of all time. But like Meganium, its evolved form Feraligatr has STS, meaning it's weak to grass and electric type moves. However, being a water type, it's only weak to grass and electric type moves. But where these two differ, largely, is Feraligatr has a plethora of coverage moves for its weaknesses. For example, Ice Fang, Ice Punch for grass type moves, Bulldoze for electric type moves, while yes, Meganium has moves like Zen Headbutt and Bulldoze to block out poison and fire type weaknesses. It doesn't have anything for the flying type weakness Feraligatr doesn't have. So, why choose Feraligatr? Well, Feraligatr also has a more creative design spectrum for its Mega Evolution. One idea could be going from bipedal to quadrupedal, not to mention it has many more type combinations that work out well with its design. Some examples would be Water Ice, Water Ground, Water Rock, Water Steel, and Water Dark. Those are just some examples of what could work with both a bipedal and quadrupedal design, with my favorite being Water Steel, a type combination that has only been done by one other Pokemon before, which is Empoleon. Not to mention its incredible attack and defense stats that would only get better with a new Mega Evolution. Overall, I believe that Totodile has the best possible opportunity to be the water starter for this game, simply because it and Feraligatr have all the potential to be an amazing Pokemon. It just needs a little boost, and I believe Pokemon Legends Z-A can give it that. But enough about Generation 2. Let's talk about the generation that everybody loves, the generation that introduced us to the true competitive aspect that Pokemon can have. Let's talk about Generation 4. And what better way to start off with Generation 4 than the grass-type turtle that nobody seems to dislike, including me, Turtwig. Turtwig is an amazing Pokemon, with its final Evo, Torterra, having a massive HP attack and defense stat, making it one of the best candidates for the grass-type starter in this game. Torterra's stats are massive, including a 95 in HP, 109 in attack, and 105 in defense, making this Pokemon a virtual steamroller. Not to mention its move pool having coverage for almost every weakness it has and can have in its Mega Evolution, making this a near-perfect candidate for the role. Unfortunately, there is one major problem with this option, and it is Mega Evolution, more or less being the design. If the rumors are true that the starters we get to choose from get new Mega Evolutions, then that is the downfall of this Pokemon. The reason I say this is because design-wise, Torterra doesn't have much that can be changed around, nor does it have anything that you can add to complicate the design while making it better. Take Charizard, for example. While Charizard is a simple design overall, with tons that can be done to improve its design, we see this with Mega X and Mega Y and its G-Max forms respectively. But that's Torterra's problem. Its design is complicated. A design like that would benefit more from a G-Max form, where it would have a bigger body and be able to have more complicated designs added to it because it's just a bigger Pokemon. But a Mega, it's not going to work. Not to mention, the only type combo that Game Freak could give it that wouldn't hurt it in the long run would be the grass and rock typing, which would get rid of 3 weaknesses but give it 2 that could easily break its defenses, being fighting and steel, all while still being weak to ice and bug. While bug isn't going to touch it, it still leaves the threat of the special monsters that are ice types and the high attack stats of both steel and fighting types. Even with all that said, I still think it's a better candidate for Pokemon Legends Z-A as the grass starter. But a Pokemon that doesn't have this design problem is Chimchar. Ah yes, Chimchar, a favorite for many fans, being inspired by the story of Sun Wukong from Journey to the West. This Pokemon is a great choice to be the fire starter in this game for a couple of reasons. First, Infernape is an amazing design, and I don't think I've heard anyone say they don't like it. Not to mention the design is simple enough that Game Freak has room to add things to make its design more complicated without looking cluttered like my point with Torterra. Finally, it has a surprising 104 in its special attack stat, tying it with its base attack stat, meaning it could be either a physical or special attacker. This fact opens up a lot of creative ideas for its Mega Evolution typing and design. Some examples are Fire Psychic, Fire Dark, Fire Ghost, or even Fire Electric. All amazing type combinations that are currently exclusive to one Pokemon or evolution line like Houndoom or Rotom. As far as its design, they could lean more into its Sun Wukong inspiration like this design by Fatmon. Overall, if they choose to make this the fire type starter, I wouldn't be upset about it. But what I would be upset about, interestingly enough, would be Piplup. Now, let's talk about Piplup, or more specifically its evolution in Empoleon. I personally don't want this Pokemon to be chosen as the water starter. I understand that it is inspired by Napoleon Bonaparte, one of France's leaders. I also know that Kalos is designed after France, that's fairly common knowledge. I don't see this Pokemon being chosen for a couple of reasons. One, even though its design is simple, there isn't much you could add to its design to change it or improve its design. It has what I and others like to call the Frieza syndrome, meaning it's so simple that you can't really do anything to complicate the design because it wouldn't look right. Its stats are okay with a high special attack and defense, but it doesn't warrant this Pokemon to be a water starter for Pokemon Legends Z-A. I'm sorry to all Pokemon fans. The stats and everything are good and would benefit from Mega Evolution, but there's not really any type combinations or design changes that would make Empoleon just that level of starter. You know what I mean? Now, if you made it this far into the video and you like my content, consider shadow punching that like button. And if you guys want to see more content like this covering Pokemon Legends Z to A, as well as my other content, how about you break swipe that subscribe button and that notification bell? It helps me out a lot and shows me that you want more content like this in the future. Anyway, let's get back on the video. Whoop! Moving on to Gen 5, we start with Snivy. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I do have my own opinions for these starters. A lot of them are fact, but my opinion is in this too, and I wish I could skip over this generation completely because I personally don't want either of these choices to be picked, but I'm going to be talking about them anyway because Oshawott was in Pokemon Legends Arceus. So, I honestly don't know much about Snivy, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't know anything about its evolution line aside from the fact that they're designed from snakes. The problem with Superior that I've seen and come to understand is that it suffers from both STS and Frieza syndrome, meaning Game Freak can't really do anything with its design without changing it too much. Plus, there are only 3 different type combinations that could work, in my opinion, with this Pokemon. Those being Grass Dark, Grass Poison, or Grass Psychic, all very good type combos, but in my opinion, seemingly wasted on a Pokemon that can't change much without redesigning the whole thing. But what can change without redesigning the whole thing is Tepig. Now, I know I say a lot of bad things about Generation 5. I don't hate it, and after playing through it again, I actually like how it's more story driven, and I think it's amazing for a Pokemon game. But I still don't like the designs for most of the Pokemon in that game. There are very few Pokemon I like the design of in Generation 5, and Tepig's evolution line is one of them. Even then, I'm still not sure if even Emboar should be in the discussion, and here's why. Emboar is indeed a beast of a Pokemon, being fire and fighting with a huge attack and HP stat as well as a decent special attack stat. Meaning it's a decent wall, but the biggest problem is the type combinations for its possible Mega Evolution. And I know I've talked about that a lot in this video, but it's true. There are just some Pokemon that don't have a decent type combo pool for Mega Evolutions, and Emboar is no exception. As a dual type mon, Emboar's design contributes to its typing, like all Pokemon do, but unlike Pokemon like Charizard, its design can't be tampered with too much unless you want to change its secondary typing. Now, don't get me wrong, they could easily do that. Same for every Pokemon mentioned in this video, and yes, I know that there are Megas that don't change types. Metagross, Venusaur, and Mega Gallade are very good examples of this. However, Emboar does have a lot of possible type combinations that would work with it, like Fire Dark, Fire Rock, or Fire Steel, just to name a few. Emboar doesn't suffer from Frieza syndrome, but I don't know if Game Freak could make a design that would show that Emboar has a secondary typing, all the while keeping Emboar, well, Emboar. I mean, let's take Fire Steel type for example. They could give Emboar armor and gauntlets that are on fire, but that's really the only thing I could think of, so yeah. Now, moving on to Generation 7, we have Popplio. No. Just no. No, 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 no. Okay, so I don't hate it, but Primarina has the same problem as Torterra, being that it would benefit more from a G-Max form than a Mega. Also, the only type combos that I can personally think of for it are Water Psychic and Water Dark, both which only really require a few minor, almost unnoticeable changes, aside from the color. So overall, I don't think Primarina is even a good candidate for the water starter. I like this Pokemon, I just don't think it fits the bill. But what does fit the bill is the very, very cute fire kitten, Litten. In fact, it's the last Pokemon we're going to be talking about. I love this little fire cat. It's in my top 3 favorite fire type starters and in my top 5 favorite fire types overall. But like all the others, I want to talk more about Incineroar. I believe that it's the second best option for the fire type starter because this Pokemon not only has amazing stats and a great design, it also has a lot of potential with both mega designs and type combinations. Like for Alligator, they could go with a quadrupedal route with Incineroar, while keeping its dark and fire typing, or lean more on towards entertainment design, making it more circus-like design instead of a wrestler design. For example, since Incineroar looks like a tiger, they could move towards a more lion design, giving it a fiery mane and flames on its wrists. Or maybe when it attacks, it could move its arms, forming a fire ring that it could jump through, delivering a nasty fire punch or mega kick. Of course, this would have to be a firefighting type situation, but since we haven't had a firefighting type since Generation 5, I believe people would be okay with that. So overall, which of these Pokemon would I pick as the starters for Pokemon Legends Z to A? And honestly, reviewing all the options, I would go with Chimchar, Totodile, and Snivy. Now, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have chosen Snivy, but I had to, given that PLA set a standard for having 3 Pokemon from 3 different generations to be starters in a Legends game. For Alligator and Infernape, both have potential to have great and memorable Mega Evolutions and type combinations, and who knows, Superior might surprise us. But what do you guys think of the video? What Pokemon do you want to be picked as the starters for this game? Leave it down in the comment section down below. I love reading your opinions. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Hoopa out. Bye guys!